The Madrona Marsh is a unique piece of nature nestled in the concrete landscape that makes up the majority of the greater Los Angeles area. Located in Torrance, about 20 miles south of downtown LA in an area called the South Bay, this urban oasis provides food and habitat for a number of plant and animal species. This video will give a brief overview of the marsh's history, ecology, and the ways it benefits its surrounding community. Believe it or not, this whole region used to be a lush and verdant wetland. 100,000 years ago, geologic conditions allowed for the uplifting of the Palos Verdes Mountains, blocking the LA River, creating a depression that allowed water to gather and wetlands to form. This created the Los Angeles Basin. The Tongva, and even some Chumash people, were the first humans to come to the Los Angeles Basin. For centuries, the indigenous Tongva people were the only ones who lived on this land, but that would not last. Spanish colonizers came from the south and took the region for agriculture. From that point on, little changed as the land became Mexico's and eventually a part of the United States. In the 1920s, everything changed once again when oil was found. The Santa Fe Railroad Company owned a sizable stretch of land in Torrance, and when the promise of oil came, their subsidiary, Santa Fe Energy, set up oil derricks. It is estimated that 90% of the wetlands that once existed in Los Angeles are now gone. Some land was lost to agriculture, oil drilling, and urbanization. Madrona Marsh exists as a humble reminder of the amazing landscapes that used to dominate the region. Despite being used for oil drilling, there was one notably empty lot that had a small natural ecosystem going on with it, complete with ducks and everything. In the late 60s, the lot that would become known as the Madrona Marsh had a resource inventory done, uncovering its many natural assets. In 1973, a community of local environmentalists banded together to, quote, save our swamp. Many of these environmentalists had just come from a project that may be familiar to some of you, spreading the word about DDT poisoning in fish, and in turn, the brown pelican. This movement to protect the wetland eventually led to the formation of the Friends of Madrona Marsh in 1974. The Friends wanted to protect the marsh, but the city wasn't going to be their answer. The land they wanted to protect was privately owned, so if they were going to save it, they were going to have to buy it. In 1978, the Keene-Nedgedly California Wetlands Protection Act set aside $800,000 for the Madrona Marsh specifically, but when the state of California was facing monetary issues, the fund was cut to $300,000. Initially, the state was going to slash it completely, but with the help of State Assemblywoman Marilyn Ryan, who was involved with the marsh, they were able to keep their $300K. In 1981, the Friends got another $1.1 million from the Environmental License Plate Fund, which took money from vanity plates and gave them to environmental organizations. Despite this, the Friends were still well short of the money they needed to purchase 54 acres of land. Unfortunately, the Friends had little time to act. A quartet of local developers had formed a plan to completely develop 160 acres of land, including the marsh. Santa Fe Energy led the charge with their drilling, but Ray Watt, a housing developer, as well as Cheryl Kersey, a light industrial and office building developer, were also interested. The last member of the quartet was billionaire Guilford Glazer, who wanted to put in Del Amo Mall and Fashion Square, which did get built and was, for a time, the largest mall in America. To combat the developers, a coalition of several organizations formed. This coalition included groups like the Sierra Club, the Audubon Society, the American Association of University Women, the League of Women Voters, several homeowners associations, and of course, the Friends of Madrona Marsh. The struggle between the developers and our coalition lasted from 1981 to 1986, and it did not start out favorably for the Preservation Coalition. The Torrance City Council voted in favor of development, 5-2. In response, the coalition collected 14,000 signatures to call a referendum, but it turns out they didn't need it. An election had occurred, and environmentalist and member of the Friends, Mark Worth, he made it onto the city council, changing the split 4-3. Then, another council member, Dr. Donald Wilson, was so impressed by the signatures as well as Worth's victory that he changed his vote too. The development project would be denied. A compromise was reached in 1984. 35 acres of land would be given to the preserve, and the city would be able to purchase another 8.5 acres with the money that had been raised thus far. The rest of the area would be developed, and a new road would be built leading to Glazer's new mega mall. After some disputes with the fine print and further negotiations,
A final agreement was reached in 1986.
From this point onward, the city of Torrance has owned and managed the land as part of its Parks and Recreations Department. The Friends of Madrona Marsh were to now act as stewards and advisors in the land's preservation.
In 2001, the city built the Nature Center. This building acts as a sort of main office for the marsh, as well as providing artistic and educational exhibits for visitors. Research is also conducted at the water and curation labs. In 2003, the last of the oil was done being pumped in the marsh. The 6 oil derricks in the center of the marsh were capped, and the pipes were all removed.
3 college instructors began teaching natural and environmental courses in 2004 on the marsh for college credit through Cal State Dominguez Hills.
Then, in 2008, the marsh grew a little more when Chevron donated the 3/4 of an acre that their rundown gas station used to sit on. The last major change to the Madrona Marsh occurred in 2011 when the city installed a massive Olympic swimming pool-sized stormwater filtration system called a biofilter next to their stormwater drainage basin, also called a sump. This allows the preserve to clean runoff water before pumping it back into the preserve. This pumping of excess water extends the wet season of the marsh for the local birds, such as ducks, that still need time to grow a bit before they leave.
Unlike many wetlands, the Madrona Marsh does not have a permanent water source, nor does it have an outlet. Because the marsh exists at a low point, it collects water runoff as well as rainwater to maintain its seasonal water level. The biofilter mentioned earlier cleans this water runoff and pumps it back into the marsh.
Madrona Marsh is a vernal marsh, which is a specific type of wetland. Relatedly, according to the EPA, vernal pools are seasonal depressional wetlands that occur under Mediterranean climate conditions.
And as I'm sure my fellow Southern Californians will agree, this region definitely has a Mediterranean climate. The term vernal literally means occurring in the spring. So a vernal pool is a pool that appears in the spring. While the Madrona Marsh is certainly wet during the springtime, it actually receives most of its rain during the winter.
Madrona Marsh consists of 4 notable microbiomes within the preserve. The vernal marsh is the most notable one, and is what people often think of when they think of a marsh. It's a mix of plant and animal life that remains damp, even if it's not always filled with water. The vernal pools are pools of water that fill when the winter rains come, but are not present year-round. They're also not as low as the vernal marsh regions. Both the vernal pool and the vernal marsh areas are surrounded by alkaline margins, which are highly salty areas just at the edge of these wet regions. The rest of the preserve is the uplands, which are at the highest elevation and do not form pools.
The soil of the Madrona Marsh and of the greater area is not good for most plants. This area is called a back dune. The front dune is that hill one commonly sees a short ways from the beach, like right there.
Thousands of years of sand piling up from the ocean winds build that frontal dune, but some lighter sand blows over it, forming a second, shorter back dune.
This light sand usually makes for poor quality soil, but native plants, like those found in the Madrona Marsh, are specifically adapted for it.
The Madrona Marsh is filled with fascinating wildlife. Some species can be found there year-round, and some only visit. Red-tailed hawks, one of the largest birds you're likely to see in North America, roost in the Madrona Marsh and forage the area for over 10 square miles. Some birds migrate down from the north in the late fall or early winter, such as the gadwall duck. Others, like the common yellowthroat, migrate up here from the south and will arrive in the spring. When it comes to plants, Madrona Marsh is filled with mostly native ones, like California sagebrush and mulefat, but some non-native species that still thrive in the environment, like the Matiliha poppy, can also be found there.
In general, there has been an effort to replace non-native species with native ones. The ice plant, for example, has been completely removed, but some plants, like the eucalyptus tree, have been left alone because birds like to perch on it. One of the only animal species brought to the marsh intentionally is the mosquito fish. While fish obviously can't live in a pool that's gone half the year, these fish are found anyway. Why is that? Well, it turns out mosquito fish are brought to the marsh every year to keep mosquito populations low. Any area with stagnant water is a perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes, and the Madrona Marsh is no exception.
Out of fear of West Nile virus, which has been reported in the area, mosquito fish are brought in each year to eat the mosquito eggs and keep the mosquito population in check.
Madrona Marsh provides a number of ecosystem services to its visitors and its residents.
It provides habitat for a wide array of animal and plant species. Many of these animals have access to food in the marsh that a more urban area just wouldn't supply.
The migratory birds we've mentioned rely on the Madrona Marsh to be a sort of roadside bed and breakfast for their trip up or down the coast. Additionally, the marsh's unique environment has led to novel adaptations such as adventitious roots.
Which get oxygen above ground due to the low oxygen levels in the soil, as well as animals like berry shrimp, which lay their eggs at the end of one wet season and hatch at the beginning of the next.
In addition to providing support for other species, the Madrona Marsh provides us humans with some fantastic perks. The amazing natural beauty of the marsh provides a sort of urban oasis outside the hustle and bustle of city life. The mosquito fish which seasonally reside in the marsh keep the mosquito populations in check, which reduces the risk of West Nile virus. The marsh was recently tested for West Nile virus and came back negative. The low nature of the marsh, as well as the sump built nearby, provide a place for water runoff to go, preventing flooding in the surrounding area. Back in the day, nearby streets used to flood much more frequently.
And of course, the marsh has tons of educational and recreational activities for kids, adults, families, and students.
That said, this relationship does not go only one way. There are a number of services us humans provide to the Madrona Marsh as well. From saving the land in the early 80s to regular old weeding, the volunteers who work here have done it all. According to an interview by David Wong several years back, the marsh's telephone operator, Joy Sweetenham, used to receive calls about ducks from the marsh getting into people's swimming pools. They actually had to go and send people to get those ducks and bring them back here to the marsh. While it's fantastic to visit the Madrona Marsh on a whim just to enjoy the green space, there are a plethora of scheduled activities for people of all ages to enjoy. For instance, once a month, the marsh hosts a tyke hike, where parents can bring their infants and toddlers for a walk around the preserve. Also once a month, the marsh hosts a nature story time for kids ages 3 to 5 years old, focusing on the significance of nature using science games, crafts, and stories. Every Friday, the marsh hosts a hands-on learning experience for young children in both the nature center and the preserve. Combined, all of these activities provide young children with an early understanding of the importance of the environment and the importance of properly respecting it.
Not a kid? Well, that's fine. Once a month, there is a nature walk open to all ages that takes you through the marsh and is led by the very knowledgeable Bill Arrowsmith, who was president of the Friends of Madrona Marsh 2 separate times. Birdwatchers in particular love to visit the marsh due to the wide variety of migratory birds that stop by. Additionally, the Nature Center itself has fascinating exhibits that provide learning opportunities for adults too. Even if you think you know a lot about nature, you're sure to learn something new here. They also have beautiful art projects throughout the center and expertly done taxidermy. In 2022 alone, the Madrona Marsh saw almost 20,000 visitors, a couple thousand of which participated in all these special activities.
The marsh has a number of activities that they used to do that have been discontinued for various reasons. One of these was the canoe tours through the pools in the wet season. Unfortunately, these tours caused too much disruption to local wildlife and were thus ended. Before the preserve was fenced off, people used to use it for stargazing. This still happens now, but is typically done here in the Nature Center parking lot.
If you want to appreciate the marsh and help while you're doing it, they host occasional habitat restoration work days to maintain the preserve. Weeding out non-native plants is essential for maintaining the ecosystem.
So if you live in the South Bay or are just here for a bit, go ahead and give Madrona Marsh and the accompanying Nature Center a visit. It's a beautiful place where you can really see the natural and human histories of the region. If you'd like to help out, go ahead and donate or volunteer at friendsofmadronamarsh.com. Again, that's friendsofmadronamarsh.com. I would like to give a very special thank you to the current president of the Friends of Madrona Marsh, Susan Hubert, as well as former president Bill Arrowsmith, for meeting with me and sharing with me their passion. Thank you.